I was actually doing a lot of the recipe development here at my parents' house, and they've got a borehole, and I was using their borehole water to brew beers, and water is 96% of beer. So I got the water analyzed and sort of had a look at exactly what forms the water. And when I started understanding that and doing some research, I said, well, actually, what's wrong with just running this water straight into the house? Like, why can't we do that? I used my parents' house where I was brewing beer as a guinea pig, and went and spent 15 grand at a local supplier and installed what I thought would work. Turned it on, and like, there was just water everywhere. Like every single fitting, there was leaks, just crazy. From day one, everything that we've set up, whether it's our stock sheet that I developed probably in February 2018, we're still using today with a business that is 15 times the size of what it was. The reason that I did that is because I built that early on, knowing that I'm not going to build something and put a bandage on it for right now. I want to build it for the long run. One thing we do from a proposals perspective is we actually do, for every single client, we do a proposal. We don't send a quote, and we do a video proposal where I speak to that client by name and walk them through their system, every single step, and why they need each individual thing.
Every deal, you as the CEO and the founder, every deal.
Yep, every deal. Well, I'll tell you a secret, not anymore, although a lot of clients think I do.
Is that AI?
Exactly, so we've cloned my voice.
I think a huge part about this is that we haven't shared with the audience yet is like what success looks like for you.
It's not necessarily about me, it's about the 25 people that we've been able to provide employment to, and the 4 people in each of their families, and the 100 people that we've actually touched just from a people perspective in our business. It's the fact of being able to get the worry of water off of people's minds.
Hello and welcome back to the Founder Files. Today I'm talking to Stephen Walker, the founder and CEO of Ground to Tap, a business that creates water filtration systems for household and for commercial use. And this story is about basically how someone who's an engineer went Bain consultant, found an idea and like just kind of ran with it. But the principles that he's applied and how he's thought about his business has been so intentional from moment one, thinking about why he's in this in the first place, where he wants to be going, what does success look like, thinking about the gap in the market from a language perspective. And for the record, this is before he even launched, right? Like how he should be communicating with the potential customers. Now he has the idea, then the patience, the piloting, building relationships, his customer experience, bringing in a salesperson as a second hire besides operations, and then just scaling it throughout with just so much intentionality, but so much wisdom, that this is an epic conversation and a founder that's I've learned a lot from, and I think you will too. And yeah, if this is the kind of content that you're here for, you're not already following the podcast, suggest you click that follow, subscribe button now so you don't miss more stuff like this. But yeah, let's get straight into hearing about Steve and the wisdom that he has to share about how he has scaled and is continuing to scale Ground to Tap. Welcome to the Founder Files, the podcast that's like eavesdropping on a conversation with a successful entrepreneur over a fireside chat. Join me, Cameron Coots, through this unique experience of unfiltered stories and insights from scaling founders around the globe as they share their ups, downs, and everything in between. The beginning.
Yeah, so beginning, but Steve Walker. So yeah, I think it's nice to know that, because it does drive, I think, where I've got to with the business. So yeah, grew up in Cape Town, went to UCT and studied engineering there, and had a really good time there. I was very, very lucky growing up that I seemed to get things quite quickly from a learning perspective. So I actually didn't spend a hell of a lot of time at varsity. Yeah, was able to skip a lot of lectures and end up getting decent marks at the end of it, which is, I think, just very, very lucky. And I think it's a lot of,
It's a super humble way of saying I'm very intelligent.
I don't think it's anything about that. I think I think it comes down to the way that my parents had really sort of built and brought us up, and both of them are entrepreneurs, and they've always been problem solvers themselves. So I think that just in the way that they've taught us to learn, I think they've taught us to learn in a very interesting way, where they've always asked us, how would you think about this differently, rather than giving us the answer. They've always taught us from a young age, like, oh, do you think there's a business idea there, or something like that. And so it's been, I wasn't aware of this when we were growing up, but I think looking back on it, and now being a parent myself, like, I think that those skills that they taught us are just sort of ingrained in us. And I think it's given me a foot up for sure. just the way that I process things and the way that I sort of synthesize things. Um, and yeah, it's been quite incredible to see that, I think, now looking back at a later stage of life. So I was able to sort of skip through a lot of classes and stuff, but I think in varsity, just understanding engineering is one part of it. And my parents having been entrepreneurs themselves, my dad runs a mining company and my mom's run a landscaping company. And I saw the freedom that that gave them. And that was always sort of what was on my heart. Like I didn't know life other than the freedom that they had as entrepreneurs. And so I knew that that was where I wanted to get to. I didn't want a boss, but I knew that I wanted control of my time and I wanted to be able to figure out what I wanted to do with my time. But having an engineering degree, I had no idea how to do that, how to do business. And so I got an amazing opportunity to go into. So I'm going to turn WhatsApp off there. So just cut out whatever happened there. And so I got an amazing opportunity to go and work at a management consultancy company called Bain, that was up in Joburg, and that was like
Just a management consultancy.
just a management consultancy, a decent one. Um, and yeah, I mean they were amazing, and that was, I knew it wasn't going to be the forever job. I knew that it's probably not what I was going to really enjoy at the time, but I knew it was a massive gap in who I was and where I wanted to get. I had some engineering ability, had no clue about business, didn't know the difference between profit and revenue. You know what I mean? And so it was amazing to be able to learn that at a place that I just learned so many things. I'm so grateful for that experience of going through Bain. And yes, it was a fast track and it was super intense and late nights and hard work. But that learning that I was able to get in 4 years up in Joburg, I would not have been able to get anywhere else in life. I think it was an amazing opportunity. And I specifically chose things like working in the private equity ring fence to learn about small businesses, because a lot of the work that the management consultancies do are with these massive corporates, which is a little bit irrelevant. So I really try to tailor my learning experience through Bain and get the most out of it. And so after 4 years up there, I said, right, enough's enough. And I was planning on starting a family. So moved back down to Cape Town and had to start something. Um, and during the later stages of my Bain career, I decided that I wanted to start a brew pub. So I was super passionate about brewing, and engineering, I think, is tied into that a little bit. But I just loved the sort of recipe development and producing something from grain and water. I think that's quite a trend throughout a lot of things that I've done. Is it's about making something that didn't exist before. Not that's necessarily new, but building something. And so the idea there, which I think is still a fantastic idea, but I'm super happy I didn't pursue it any further. And the idea there was to create a wine farm type of environment, but in the brewing industry. Like if you go to a beer pub these days, you get a guy with a beard and sort of like a messy t-shirt, and he sort of serves you his tasting tray and takes a big lick off of the glass before he shoves it in front of you and says, "Here's your beers." You know what I mean? That's like the beer vibe. But what goes into beer and the taste and the flavors that are in beer are like so much more intense and diverse than what you're tasting in wine. Yet a wine farm, you get somebody in a bow tie and a suit coming and explaining those tastes and where these grapes came from. And you don't get that sort of feel from a brewery. And so I thought that the beer deserved that sort of accolade, and I thought it was an amazing opportunity to like be here in the Cape Town wine route and be able to do something with that. Thank goodness that didn't materialize, because like 2 years later, COVID hit and we would have been dead in the water. So yeah, sort of, I think my path was guided for me, which I'm very grateful for. But as part of brewing, I was actually doing a lot of the recipe development here at my parents' house, and they've got a borehole, and I was using their borehole water to brew beers. And beer, water's like, I don't know, 96% of water's 96% of beer. So I got the water analyzed and sort of had a look at exactly what forms the water. And when I started understanding that and doing some research, I said, well, actually, what's wrong with just running this water straight into the house? Like, why can't we do that?
I just want to go back a step. Like you just said, what forms the water? Like I don't understand that. My brain's immediately going back to like high school chemistry, and I'm like H2O. Like
Yeah, 100%. So I'm maybe jumping a little bit, but so what are the minerals that are part of that water? Like it's not just H2O. There's other stuff that's dissolved in that water. There's calcium, there's pH, there's salts, there's iron, there's all sorts of things that are as part of that water. And they're really important with beer brewing because, I mean, not to get into the technicalities of it, but if you've got a high sodium to chloride level, then you've got a more rounded taste beer, or high chloride to sodium, then you've got a more and a sharper beer. And so you why you have different beers developed all over the world is because of that water profile. And they found that when they were developing, stouts in Ireland, they had a whole bunch of calcium in the water, and that worked nicer with darker grains and was able to give that sort of more rounded, fuller taste. Whereas, when you did your IPAs in London, or even in California, like there they had a lot higher chloride ratio in the water, and that was able to complement those hops that they were putting in the beer. So it was very important from a beer perspective. But now I started looking at these minerals from a slightly different lens, and I said, well, why can't we run this into the house? And started doing some research into that. And I actually found out that we had pretty good water. But the people that I was asking about, what we needed, what equipment we needed, would start asking me like quite crazy questions that me as an engineer I was struggling to answer. So they'd ask me like, what flow rates you want, or like, what pipe sizing are you going to use? And I just thought, like, how are these guys trying to sell something to a residential homeowner asking technical engineering questions that I've got to go and work out like on a calculation? And I thought there was a massive opportunity there. I mean, the core of it is that I thought that there was a huge opportunity just to simplify the language and make something that's a pretty complex engineering process, make it easy to understand for the individual customer, and get them across the line from that perspective. And don't worry, we will do the engineering side. This is what you need to know as a homeowner. And and so rather than what flow rate you need, it's like how many bathrooms do you need, or how many bathrooms do you have, to try and work out. We'll do the calculations in the back end. And so I thought there was a huge opportunity and a gap just to communicate slightly differently.
Cool. I want to get more into that story because I think that was where the idea was formed. But just like talk to me about the scale that you're at now.
Yeah. So, um, fast track 8 years, and we've gone from that concept to a team of 25 people, and we've for the last couple of years we've been doubling pretty much, or sorry, growing at about 50% each year, which I'm super proud of. And but we'll get into this as well. I'm almost like um I feel like I have very, very high expectations for myself. So there actually wasn't any other option but to get to the place that we're in now. And there wasn't like an alternative option for us. I didn't even like entertain another
What do you mean?
option. And I think that, so having done well through varsity and through school, and being able to go to places like Bain and do those sorts of things, I, I struggle to think of a time where I haven't been able to achieve what I've been able to set my mind to. And so while, you know, people do compliment me, I often don't take those compliments as a compliment. I almost look at it as like, hey, there's actually no other option. Like that is the only way. Like I would have failed if I didn't achieve better than excellence. You know what I mean? So there is a very high level and standard that I put for myself. And I know that that's very unhealthy. That's not a good way to live life, because there will be a time and a place where things will crash and burn for sure. And we haven't had that time yet, but I'm anticipating it's going to come in the future one day. And how I deal with that is also going to be a story in itself.
Okay, so it's basically just like you're waiting for the complexity to get the better of you, but up until this point, you've had a good handle on it.
I don't think it necessarily just with ground to tap. Like, sure, yeah, the complexity of ground to tap is mad. But I know that something at some stage of my life, I'm not going to be able to achieve what I want, or where my goal is. Like, the fact that it's sort of like, a swimmer or a runner visualizing where the end of the race is, and you have that concept of, you need to see yourself winning the race. You need to see yourself getting over that line first. And I think it's a similar thing in business or in life. I've got no doubt that I'm going to get there. And I think it's important it sounds incredibly arrogant, and I think that so far it's probably sounded incredibly arrogant in
You
my
don't
story.
come
But
across as arrogant at all, just for the record. You come across as self-aware.
I'm trying to say it's a confidence that's been built over many years, that gives people the opportunity to try something, and try it with guardrails that they've thought it through in a place, but it's not no risk. And I think that confidence has really pushed it through to actually be able to be fruitful at the end of the day. And by no means do I take it as it's me. And that's I've been able to create this. I've got a huge um I've got a huge standing in my faith and in terms of what God's been able to gift me with to get to this place. And I don't think it's about me either. I think that one of the core reasons that Ground Tap exists is very, very much to be a blessing to other people. And it's not necessarily about me. It's about the 25 people that we've been able to provide employment to, and the 4 people in each of their families, and the 100 people that we've actually touched just from a people perspective in our business. It's the fact of being able to get the worry of water off of people's minds, whether it's, taps running dry or other companies that can make better profit because we're giving them water at a cheaper price. It's about, I think a lot of the concept around Ground to Tap is about being able to create better lives for the people around us. And I firmly believe that the path has been paved, these doors have been opened, because that is sort of the destined plan for what God wants. And again, if we crash and burn, and if there's that time that comes that something, not necessarily Ground to Tap or something else in my life, I'm not worried about that, because I've got the confidence that there's actually something bigger at play here. And it is so freeing to be able to live life like that and not having to have, check over your shoulder and worry about every single next cent that comes onto the table, because yeah, sure, there's planning in place. And it doesn't mean I'm going to sit back and just relax and let life happen. I'm very, very intentional about life, but I know that I don't have to worry.
Cool, man. Refreshing. Back to the beginning, like at least we've gone through the prologue, we've now the conception of the business. Keep telling that story. I want to just hear about how the idea came to fruition, like where like your first prototype, but even what you did before prototype, the fact that you were just trying to simplify this language. What happened?
Yeah, so I think I had the marketing side down, or the sort of strategy of how we were going to approach things from a sales perspective, and how we were going to get into sort of the customer's ears, from a communication perspective. But we did still have to cross the bridge of, okay, well, we've got to have a product to be able to sell. So I used my parents' house where I was brewing beer as a guinea pig, and I said to them, like, look, are you keen? And if you're keen, and would you mind paying for the equipment that I'm going to install at your house? And they said, yeah, no problem. And so try to figure out,
Got your first customer right there.
went and spent 15 grand at a local supplier and got all the sort of components that we needed, installed what I thought would work, um, turned it on, and like, there was just water everywhere. Like every single fitting, just there was leaks, just crazy. And I'd used the wrong fittings, and I hadn't been able to connect them properly. I had no idea, and I'd undersized stuff and oversized other things, and spec the wrong pump and all that sort of stuff. But it was an amazing opportunity to be able to just do something and see it being built, and have that concept and actually see it materialize. Anyway, fixed the leak, sort of got
Sorry,
that all
but actually,
sorted.
before you get into that, I'm just trying to picture the context of you in your life right now. I mean, it's like Bain was always there, and like I still don't understand what the reason was to leave Bain. Slash, you're kind of in an open spot. Now I know that these consulting companies pay quite well, so I mean, it sounds like you had a bit of some breathing room. What are my next steps? What is it that I want to do? You had the microbrewing idea, so I'm just trying to like contextualize the headspace you're in at the time, and why you've got the freedom to tinker. Just a brief summary of just that.
Yeah, it was very much sort of a nest egg that had been built up through Bain. I was also, I may not look at now, but in varsity days, I was lucky enough to do some modeling and sort of earn some money on the side as well. So I'd built up a fair amount of money to just be comfortable and not have to stress about getting food on the table tomorrow. I just recently got married. We were renting a place. My wife was still, she was working in a very, very good job as a marketing manager. at Johnson and Johnson. And so, we were pretty frugal. I've always been very intentional about the way that we spend money. So even at Bain, earning good salaries, like, didn't blow us. Like I was able. People say, "Oh, you should save 10% of what you earn." I was pushing it to try to save like 40 or 50% of what we earn, just because I could at the time. I didn't need to be lavish. I didn't need to go and blow money up. And so I had a really nice nest egg and had some time to settle. I knew that we wanted to have kids, and I knew that I knew that I wanted to have the end goal of having a business, because then I could have control of my time, and I didn't want a boss, to be honest. Um, but I also knew that I probably only had like 2-3 years to get that right, because if we were to have kids, I didn't want to be starting a business while we were having kids. I had 2-3 years to mess around and tinker and do that stuff, but there was some sort of pressure to get it across the line sooner rather than later. And and so after probably about 9 months of trying really hard to find a good venue for the brew pub, sort of had the concept and the idea of the water treatment systems. And that's when I sort of switched a little bit and started playing around with those water treatment systems, and installed that first one at my folks' place, and leaks, managed to fix it, managed to get it up and running. And I mean, we were break even from day one, essentially, because 15 grand out, and I charged them 15 grand for the equipment, and sure, it was my time and my labor, but it was school fees, you know what I mean? From there, and my mom had a couple of landscaping jobs, and she started contacting, or she gave me the contacts of a couple of people from her landscaping jobs who have really nice houses in Constantia. Day zero was around the corner. So this was 2017, and if you remember, Cape Town day zero was in 2018, which is also sort of, I think, what spurred me on to say, okay, well, this is actually an important thing right now. And I was able to go sit down, see them in their lounge, have a cup of tea, and say, droughts around the corner. Why don't you look at this as an opportunity? And sure, we'll charge you very little for actually doing it, compared to what other companies were charging at the time. We're getting off the ground. But I've got an engineering degree, and most of the other guys installing stuff are plumbers. So I'm pretty sure that we can design something that's better than what the plumbers are installing. And I got another 3 sales. That was September. I got another 3 sales between then and December. And that was, again, amazing, because I would charge them a 60% deposit. That would cover the sort of procurement of the stock. And I'd go and buy that stock. I'd go and build it literally in my parents' garage, and put it together with pipes and onto a skid, take it to the client site, install it. And when they were up and running, charge them the remaining 40%. And that was sort of to cover my time and my design and everything. So from day one, we didn't really need a huge amount of investment or anything like that in stock or anything. And I was able to start breaking even.
So just, what's your headspace? What's your priority at that time? Kind of what's your strategy? It sounds like it's not about generating quite a bit of profit, not necessarily trying to grow the business. It's almost like just trying to learn, like figuring out, well, what's this, not even what the sales system is, what the product is, what the need is. It's kind of, you thought through the marketing, the simplification of language, you can see the gap. But yeah, just talk to me through like your thinking and prioritization, because you're very deliberately not trying to charge at a high, at even a reasonably profitable rate at that point.
I don't know if I had any sort of real intention at the time, and sort of looking back, it's always easier to try and figure out sometimes, or maybe it's not so easy, because actually it's 8 years ago as well, so I can't remember that far back. And there was a slight different concept at the time, where I actually thought the first idea was to say, I'm going to buy the stuff, I'm going to do the sale, but I'm actually going to get plumbers to install it. And after my first 2 or 3 that I installed, I realized, hold on, I'm not going to be able to get a plumber to install this. It's actually a lot more complex than I thought it was on day one. And I think that my goal at that stage was just to, uh, with that concept, it was just to become like a solopreneur, or whatever the word is. It's just a single person
Solopreneur.
business where there we go, that's the one. And where I'm just bringing money in, getting somebody else to do it, and procuring and sort of selling. And if I was making a couple of 100,000 rand a year, that would be fantastic. Like, that's all we needed. And maybe I'll get somebody else to do it down the line, but there was no like big glamorous plan of, hey, this is going to become this company. And I think from there, another big client that we got was Eagle's Nest Wine Farm. So my wife's dad, my father-in-law, used to work. He was the farm manager at Eagle's Nest, and again, looming day zero. They'd run borehole water into their property at the vineyards and at the farm at the estate. And Peter, the owner, said that one day he was sitting watching TV, and suddenly there was like a leak that develops like on the wall next to the TV. And like 3 days later, there was just water like shooting through the wall. And that's what happens with water if you don't treat it properly and you run it into copper pipes. And when the pH is low, when it's a little bit corrosive, it starts eating away at those copper pipes and creating pinprick holes. So that was an experience that they'd had in the past. And he was like, I know Dezo's around the corner. I want to get this sorted. Steve, can you sort it out for me? And that was our first commercial job that we did. 8 years down the line, we're still sort of servicing that system, which we have done one renovation to, one little upgrade to, but to all intents and purposes, it's doing a really good job, and no more water shooting through the wall either, which is fantastic. And then from there, we started getting into some of the wine farms. So we've done like Constantia wine farm, all of their water. And that was like year one. We're sort of looking at some of those wine farms and stuff. So had really nice foot ups all the way through. And I mean, it was amazing at that stage. Like I was building out a website. I was trying to do the sales. I was trying to procure stock, trying to find the right stock. I was doing the installs myself, building the systems and going installing them. And I actually had a mate at that stage who just finished varsity. His name's Kieran. I don't know if you know Kieran. Bretmo's Kieran, actually. Kieran Donnelly. And he was also at a loose end at that stage. And he was like, cool. I mean, I'm happy to come help you out on an hourly basis. And the two of us were just sort of going and fitting these systems into houses and turning them on and getting them up and running. And after that, we had another guy that was working for my dad that also had some free time. And we said, cool, I'm going to pay you. His name's Massey. He's still working with us today. He's come back and started working with us today. And he started doing some stuff for us on the side as well. And then, we got to a stage during like peak of day zero where we were doing 2 of these systems a week. And like, I didn't have enough time to be able to, I remember leaving a voicemail on my phone saying, please don't call me, just send me an email. And my dad tried to call me one day and he's like, Steve, you can't do that. You're trying to sell stuff to people. You can't say, don't call me. Like you can't do that. And so I realized like, look, I'm short of hands here. And I mean, my dad was getting involved, just like gluing pipe in the garage, just sort of trying to help and see where we can get hands down. So like day zero was again, like the stars aligned. It was an amazing springboard just to kick off an idea and really get the business growing. I think that Kieran was a huge influence in the business in that early stage because he didn't only have he could help me in installations, but he's actually running a marketing company now, and he has an amazing marketing brain, and he started doing things like videos for us and some basic marketing material and refining our website, which we probably only changed like 4 or 5 years down the line. And so some of that core stuff that he helped us set up, not just on top of the installations that he was doing, was super helpful for us as a business to get going.
Yeah, I wonder if you were doing like a Bain case study or like a consulting case study based interview situation on your own business. As I say that partially facetiously, but the early stage success, I want to understand what are the conditions that you think created that success? And you're not allowed to say luck, you're not allowed to say the grace of God, and you're also not allowed to say the serendipitous marketing conditions around day zero.
Yeah. So I think that I have still been very intentional, from the get-go on a lot of those things. Running out of hands is part of an entrepreneur's journey at every single stage. We're still running out of hands 8 years later. But try to anticipate and see a little bit further down the line of what is the next thing that you're going to need is I think key to where I've got to. So when I did realize that, okay, I'm no longer going to become this one-man band that's, just selling systems, and I started realizing, hey, there is a bit of a market for this. So probably early 2018, I said, if this is going to become a business, so that's what, 4 months after we started. And if this is going to become a business, and one thing that I want to be very clear on is that I can't be the center of every single decision. I can't be the one person that's doing everything and that is going to be the bottleneck consistently. And so I've been from day one, everything that we've set up, whether it's our stock sheet that I developed probably in February 2018, we're still using today, with a business that is 15 times the size of what it was, and has hundreds of pieces of inventory that we try to manage. The reason that I did that is because I built that early on, knowing that I'm not going to build something and put a bandage on it for right now. I want to build it for the long run. And so I spent probably more time then than I needed to building out a stock sheet, and which had a whole bunch of bells and whistles. But I knew that it was something that we were going to use down into the future. And it's falling apart now, but that's fine. It's done 8 years of hard yards, so that's okay. I'm happy to accept that. Same thing with our service tracker. Like within that period of that first year, I realized, hold on, we've now got 40 clients. I can't remember whose systems whose and where it was and what components are in each system. Let me try and build out something that's good for tracking that so that we know when we need to service those systems in the future. That's the same service tracker that we're using today, 8 years later. And it's been built with that future vision, that future purpose of saying, how do we make sure that this is good, not just now, but good in 5 years time and 10 years time? And then in terms of the decision making, I think that ties into that decision making thing, which is, okay, how do I remove myself from being the one person that knows who we need to service and what components we need to go get it there? How do I remove myself from being the one person that knows where we need to procure stock and how much it's going to cost and how much stock we actually need to procure? How do I make that process something that we can actually get somebody on board to do that? We only got a stock controller in 2 years ago. So for 6 years, I was using that platform, but now my stock controller can take that platform over completely and they know exactly what to do without me being there. And I think I've been very intentional again about, as the business has grown, what's the next piece that I can give away that I don't have to be in control of, that I don't have to make the decisions of? So the very, very first thing that we did was operations. I had a head of operations that joined. He left after about a year or two, and then I've had another head of operations operations manager that's joined, and he's been with us for 6 years, and he's absolutely incredible. And
Why'd the
definitely the
first one
business
leave?
wouldn't be. He moved to America.
Okay.
So him and his girlfriend, his girlfriend, wife, fiance was American, and they were moving back over. And that business, that side of the business, I knew that it was in Jacques' hands, and Jacques was super proficient. And he was probably 24 years old when he joined us. Probably the most mature 24-year-old I've ever met in my life. Had his head screwed on straight and just had very good decision-making ability. And I knew that it was safe in his hands. And so I was able to sort of pull myself away from that. And now, okay, cool. Now I need to focus on sales, right? Cool. I'm getting very involved in sales. Ooh, if I could get away from sales and focus more on strategy or more on some of the operational processes, that'll be great. Cool, let me find a salesperson. And I went and found a salesperson. And those are the first sort of 2 hires that we did, was basically an operations manager and then a sales consultant, which is very unusual. I think sales consultants are not something that you hire as person number 2 in a business.
Yeah, it's usually the hardest thing, the function to replace, because it's all operations and then all kind of like back office. And only then it's like, okay, I need to kind of solve this like founder dependence on sales and all these relationships. And then it actually becomes a lot more complex to undo at that point.
That's it. So yeah, it was actually something that many people advise me against. Salespeople are different animals. They're very difficult to manage. And by no means have we got sales right. Like I need to dive deep into sales now, because we're in a place where I need to try and restructure that and try and give more guidance and give more strategy around sales. But I think that that's something that was able to free up my time, um, and um, and remove some of that decision making or just even that client communication side of things to really focus in on the business. So as we've gone through, it's been the next thing that I've given away, whether it's been from sales into post-installation customer servicing, into engineering, into stock, into finance, into marketing, into recruiting. Each of those positions are people that we've sort of, okay, the business is now ready for the next bolt or the next person that we're going to bolt on, and the next person that we're going to bolt on. And I'd say I'm probably at the stage now where I'm maybe 70% out and what I mean by out is like the business could function 70% without me. Definitely not 100% of the way there.
What's the 30%?
30% is there is still definitely some sales. So we're doing, I'd say that probably 50% of the sales still run through my networks, and people that I've developed relationships with. 50% run through, the sales arm that we've got. The only reason that I said 70% is because we're short on staff as well. I think all the systems and processes they're in place for operations to run smoothly and by itself, but we are super resource constrained. So sometimes I need to step in and help with an engineering design or help with a review and that side of things as well. At least 50% of my time currently is spent on still how do we grow and structure and process and then sort of improve the operations or improve the sales process and sort of that whole concept of focusing on your business rather than in your business. So while I'm definitely not perfect, I think 50% is a good measure for the moment, and I think it's definitely what's been able to help us with that growth.
So I want to go back to the sales consultants when you first brought them in. Yeah, how did you set them up for success, right? Were there specific types of customers? I mean, you've got everything from working with homeowners, you've got targeting wine farms and wine estates at that time. There's probably other businesses, kind of corporates as well. There's different needs that you're serving. Some people, it's from a utilities perspective, similar to solar. It's more of a financial system and financial value proposition than just about water. For some people, it is about water quality, and that's the priority. How did you simplify that for your sales consultant? So it's let me just give you a couple, at least one customer segment or market segment or something to set you up for success. I don't even know if that's the right answer, but yeah. So, just talk me through how you because you're giving them everything that a founder can do is never going to work. But so yeah, how did you set them up for success?
Yeah, I didn't. I think that I didn't set them up for success. And I mean, even that simple concept of you saying, okay, well, maybe just focusing on this industry would have been fantastic direction at that stage, because I think it's really good advice. And I think that still, as we build out the sales arm of our business, I think that if we have a specific sales consultant focused in on each individual industry, I think that's ideal, because they've got different language that they talk and they've got different needs, and understanding the different needs between a development, a mall that's going up versus a farm. They've just got completely different language that they're talking. You're in different networks as well. One side you're talking to these architects and these QSs, and the other side you just either go and have a glassy bannervein with a farmer. You know what I mean? It's very different. And so I don't think, looking back, that setting up that sales arm early was hugely successful from a business perspective. If I look at it, I probably invested more in my sales team money-wise than what they've brought in profit. But what it has done is it's given me time to give an essential part of the business to somebody that I can then focus on some other area of the business. So if you're just doing a direct cost comparison, it's a poor business decision. But the fact that it freed me up to go and do other things, that was where the growth came from. So it was an enabler for me to be able to do other things. And we very much sort of fumbled our way through the sales things until probably only 3 or 4 years ago. We came up with the idea to start, sales wasn't going to be about cold calling. And I think the days of cold calling are long gone. It was about networks and about relationships, and that the penny of that only dropped about halfway into our life as a business, and that's when we started creating these pods of say construction. So we become really close with the QS. And with that QS, we find out which builders does he generally use, which architects does he generally use, and try and really get involved with each one of those people and those touch points. Because not every construction project works the same way, where sometimes it's the QS that comes with the recommendation, sometimes it's the architect that comes with the recommendation. And trying to build those network of pods, I think has worked really, really well. And you can't pick up the phone and call somebody and say, hey, I'm Steven from Ground to Tap. Can I sit down and chat to you? You've got to say, hey, I got your number from X. I got your number from Cameron. He said that you might be interested in this, and they almost feel compelled because they don't want to disappoint Cameron at that stage to sit down and have a conversation with you. And that for me has been like quite a door that's open in terms of understanding how sales works. And building. I didn't hated sales. I never thought I was a good salesperson, um, until I realized how powerful just my friends were, and my just the networks that I've been able to build through that, or through my parents' friends, or through our existing clients who love what we've done, and just being able to refer on people that they think we'd be a good fit for. And that is really the power that I've seen in sales in the type of business that we're running, where it is big project based. Obviously, if you're selling sunglasses, it might be slightly different.
Yeah, I think when it comes down to a simple product, that's often going to be the case. But when there's you're selling to businesses, or you're selling to people, or there is change required, there's change in processes, change in ways of working, changes in behavior, then the sale can't be simple, right? Inherently, because there needs to be an education part, there needs to be a trust, there needs to be, because people don't like change as much as we change super quickly, and the rate of change in the world is insane. It's like we don't do it easily. We need persuasion, but what else? Sometimes persuasion, but more often than not, we need trust. Anyway, before I got on that rabbit hole, I'm still just trying to unpack the sales part, and because you talk it in a way where there's like total comfort, and like often with the founders, it's like new prospects, new clients, like you're not going to mess this up. I'm going to control this. Like I want to, because if it's going to be messed up, then it's on me, and it's like the learning, etc. But like, there's this like risk and like this fragility to the business. Like I can't fuck this up, basically. Yeah, you didn't seem to have that mentality.
Yeah. Look, I think if you're going to hold on to everything, you're going to be really stifled. And I think that with I think it comes down to the right people as well. Like the first sales consultant we got just didn't work. And yeah, it lasted very, very short. And she sort of said, right, enough's enough. Um, and the second guy that we got in, his name's Reg. He's also still with us. He I think he knows what he knows, and he knows what he doesn't know, which is very good. And he's also quite a bit older. You know he's not wet behind the ears. Um, and I think that comes with experience as well. And so I think I had a hold on it from a perspective of, and maybe this is a good thing or a bad thing, we didn't have a product off the shelf that we sold. So every sale still had to run through me, not from a sales side, but from a proposal side, if that makes sense. Where we actually had to bespoke design each sale. And so even though he was having all the conversations, which takes up a lot of the time, and I was still in control of the actual final price that we were going to give, and sort of the way that was delivered. Um, and what we've done, actually, we've pushed that to another step where I'm still in control of it, but I'm not in control of it. Where one thing we do from a proposals perspective is we actually do, for every single client, we do a proposal. We don't send a quote, and we do a video proposal where I speak to that client by name and walk them through their system, every single step, and why they need each individual thing.
Every deal, you as the CEO and the founder, every deal.
Yep, every deal. Well, I'll tell you a secret, not anymore, although a lot of clients think I do.
Is that AI?
Exactly. So we've cloned my voice. And now my proposals engineer does this one thing, but it runs through. So they do all the proposals, they do all of the script, and then it's still my voice over in terms of the proposal.
Very cool. Okay, I jumped a bit ahead there. You're still talking through this actually development of your sales function. That's just fascinating to listen. Please just give me more.
Yeah. So it's yeah, I think one thing we realized with that was you had to get connection. So that was really important. The second step we realized was, how do we differentiate ourselves in that sales environment? Like, it's very, very difficult for a client to know the difference in two water treatment systems, or two different water treatment companies. Like, how do you differentiate yourself? How do you say to your client that we're better than the other person?
Except for just saying, "Oh, we're better," and trust me, bro.
Exactly. Trust me. You know what I mean? Like, just jump off a cliff. Trust me. And it's not like a small amount of money that they're going to be spending on the system either. And it's something that is really close to them as well. It's water that they're going to be running through their house. They're going to be showering and they're going to be drinking. And so there's a huge amount of trust that's up there. And I think that identifying that it is a high trust product and knowing that we are going to invest a little bit more time in that proposal stage, and that putting that together and being really tailored to their thing, and spending more time and walking them through that builds a lot of trust. And I think that that day that we started doing those proposals, our conversion rates jumped from, say, 20% to 50%. Like, we just had a huge influence. It had a huge impact in terms of how many clients we really were able to get through the door.
I think that makes a lot of sense. Coming back to the reason why you had the idea was just simplifying the language, right? And even if you're talking about flow rates and whatnot, it's still the point of, I'm not an expert on this, and this, like, as a homeowner as well, there's just, I'm not an expert in anything about the building that I live in, and I'm always trusting people. Like, I'm trusting plumbers, I'm trusting electricians. They're like, listen, we knew you need this. It's going to cost this, and I'm like, I guess, okay, shit, cool. But I think, and to your point, is something that's as complex as your entire water system. And putting in a filtration for that is a lot. And just the signaling of, instead of like, here's a quote, it's like, I'm gonna walk you through this, explain it to you, have a conversation. I'm putting the effort in to show you that this is important. Um, yeah, it just creates that human trust, or yeah, it's just that trust element of, this isn't, it's transparent. It's not. It's taking my needs into consideration. I'm feeling seen, appreciated, and heard. And like, and I see effort, right? It's not just plugged into a system. Cool. This, like, tell me if you're gonna buy it, leave. It's like, no, like you care about this. I care about you too. Doing that, and it's just that small element of like, I'm happy to put this in your hands.
Yeah, exactly. I think it's something that I realized early on, is that you don't necessarily in South Africa, and this is probably even before starting Ground stuff. Like, when I was at Bain, I realized, if you want to start a company, it doesn't have to be a novice idea. It doesn't have to be the next Uber, like the next unicorn or whatever, like, crazy idea. You've just got to do it better than the person next to you. And in South Africa, that's actually not too difficult, because service levels across anything. I mean, even listening to your mate who's doing the thing about recruiting, like, they don't do recruiting properly. Most of the other companies, just doing recruiting properly is actually going to get you further than any sort of novice idea or new way that you're doing it. Just communicating with the client, like updating them, getting back to them on time, and explaining why it's different things. And with the water treatment system, it's something that's going into their house, and then they're going to continue using for the next 10, 20 years. They can't expect you. You got to be around for the next 10, 20 years to service this thing. How then are you not just going to install and run away with their money? Like, so it's a lot of building that trust up front. And so that's why we do invest very heavily in our proposals. And I think that was definitely a big uptick in terms of building that sales arm out. Um, the other thing that was super important from the sales arm is also being able to filter clients and screen clients. Um, and if we were to build a proposal for every single inquiry that came through the door, we would be completely out of time. I say we got a 50% conversion rate, but before we get there, we've done a whole bunch of qualification to make sure that this client is actually somebody that's going to be interested, and somebody that's got the budget and that is actually going to go ahead with a project. It's now, are they going to go ahead with us or somebody else? And that's the stage where we'll sort of kick off the proposal stage. So again, how did I get my time back? Reg was incredibly good at filtering out a whole bunch of that stuff. Where maybe if we didn't have a salesperson, I would have just been completely bogged down in just dealing with all those inquiries. And never mind just trying to get them across the line. But so yes, he's paid himself back 1,000-fold in time, even if it's not been super on the financial side.
Okay, talk me through that qualification process, like, and how you're doing that whilst not just maintaining trust, but actually enhancing it, because it can be quite easy to be arrogant in qualification. It's just like, hey, do you mind just quickly filling out this form just so we can know? It's like, sorry, you're not a good fit, but thanks for inquiring. No one wants that.
Yeah, I think it's something we're still developing and getting into. I don't think we have any secret sauce here. And I think it's just sort of asking just general questions, about how clued up are they about where they're getting to. I mean, we have 1,000, inquiries, not quite that many, but I'm being exaggerative, but like we get a lot of inquiries coming in about water bottling. Everybody thinks that water bottling is like the next big idea and that they're going to do it in their town. And as soon as you get one of those calls coming in, like, do you have a business plan? Like, how much are you going to be selling?
So what do you mean by like water bottling? Is it's about the fact that it's like taking on Thirst and Bon Aqua and Valpre, and it's like I'm gonna launch my own water business.
Everybody in Nelspruit, or whichever small little dorpy things that they can now become their.
It's simple. All I need is a borehole, and I need a filtration system, and then like I need plastic, and I'm a millionaire.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. It's pretty straightforward. And but but when you ask those qualification questions, like, it's no point putting a proposal together for them. And you sort of nicely send them to the Water Bottling Association of South Africa website. And you say, when you've got an idea of your business plan, like, here's an example of one, come back to us. And so, generally they don't. And what we've started to do recently is we have started to sort of put together some ballpark numbers, especially for residentials. It's a bit more difficult for commercial, but for residentials, hey, I know you haven't had your water tested yet, but you're based in Rondebosch. There's higher iron levels in Rondebosch generally, is what we're finding. So you're going to be looking somewhere in this region, and just getting a feel from them if they go, oh, I didn't realize it was that expensive. Like, why does water
Flinch
need to be
test.
treated? That's what I think. Yeah. And
Mm.
or they're like, okay, no, I thought it would be around about there. It's 10%, 20% higher than I thought. And now you sort of know that somebody's warm, or they're not even warm. They're like now getting quite hot. Um, and so you're really just spending time asking them questions about, what do you have on site? Like, how many bathrooms do you have? Do you have Jojo tanks? Like, have you had your water tested? All those sorts of questions. Not that those are disqualifying questions, but it's about you starting to get a feel for how in depth they've actually thought through this process.
But also as a customer, like I imagine myself going through that and I was like, yes, I'm really in the hands of an expert, right? It's like you're asking all these questions. It's like trying to understand me and my needs. And for you, it's like, I'm trying to qualify you. And for me, it was just like, there's so many of these things I haven't thought about. And it's like, and sure, yeah, 100%. Like I was just like, I want filtered water. And it's like, and you asking me all of this stuff. And it's like, wow, like I feel like I've found the right business for this. Whether or not I buy from you, I feel like I found the right business.
Yeah. And when we've done it badly, oh, I cringe because you feel so bad for that customer. It's you can't you don't know the number of, so actually just after day zero, say 2020, 2021, I'd say that 50% of the work that we were doing on residentials was just fixing other people's crap systems that they put in. Like, there is a huge number of work that just came amount of work that just came from fixing systems that were put installed. You can have all of the right components in the wrong order and it doesn't work, or the wrong control side of it and it doesn't work. And so it's very, very difficult for customers to understand that. And I was so sad just for the customers who, would sometimes say, oh, it's 10 grand cheaper there, I'm going to go with that guy. And you say, dude, I don't know how to say this, but you got to be kicking yourself in the head. Like, 2 months down the line, it's going to happen. You're going to come back to us and I'm going to say, sorry, we're going to have to redo the whole thing. And it's so difficult to deal with at that stage. But yeah, I agree with you. It's about a two-way thing. It's, yes, we were qualifying, but at the same time, the customer is feeling that love.
I think the point of you also bringing in a sales consultant, right, and doing it early, but even that not being profitable, like what the benefit is to your time. It's also, I'm thinking of a customer experience lens to this as well, and but that goes everywhere, all the way to the beginning of sales too. If you are the one controlling sales, if you don't have someone that you've kind of handed this over to, and you are also running everything else in your business, there's not from a desire or an arrogance perspective. It's just from like an emotional resource perspective. Like in terms of where I budgeted my attention, I don't want to be spending my time with people that aren't potential clients. So within that is it's like I actually don't have much resources for empathy because it's like allocated to everything else. And so I'm like what's the list? Cool. Like how many bathrooms do you have? Like sorry, listen, like I don't think we're the right fits, but like go to this person. And it's like the exact same words that you use to get to that point, but it's like you just feel like it's been rushed. And it's like that was a shit experience. Versus you could say this is like, how many bathrooms do you have? Like, okay, let me understand what is that you're looking for. How many people live in your house, right? And like do you shower like once a day, twice a day? Whatever, like whatever your requirements are. And it's like, okay, cool. I don't think you're the right fit for us right now, but like you go, it's the exact same words, but I think because you've got the space, you can have empathy, right? And the reason why I'm even talking about this is like I'm a little bit burnt out at the moment, and noticing my own irritability going up is just just because I don't have the bandwidth for empathy, and I'm a very compassionate person, and that's just explains what basically irritability is and why people that are stressed are irritable. It's not because they're bad people; it's just they don't have the emotional budget for empathy in that situation. And I think it's given me a different lens on what that benefit is, but why it's so important. It doesn't pay off in the short run, but for your reputation and for that customer experience and for that level of trust, uh, it really pays off in being able to build a sustainable business. So, I mean, that just clicked for me. Does what I say resonate with you?
Yeah, 100%. And I think finding that person that does have the time and does enjoy those conversations, because I don't necessarily always enjoy those conversations either. Sure, I don't have much time, so I'm even more short. But also, it's not what drives me. That's not what I love. Like Reg loves talking to people, and so please go ahead, do all the talking for me, and then let me know when you need help on somebody that's serious. Um, and yes, I think 100% agree with you. I also haven't thought about it from that perspective, but it's probably resulted in a much better customer service and through that process. The key drivers for me was the qualification side of things and the proposals. And I think one other thing with the qualifications, what I've seen with other companies in the water treatment space is that they're very nervous to do anything or say anything unless there's water results. And and something.
What do you mean by what are results? Do you mean like test results?
Yeah. So in Cape Town, well, I've been across South Africa or across the world, but I think more so in Cape Town, your boreholes and your well points will differ in water quality, but depending on where you are. So most borehole companies or water treatment companies will say, okay, I can put a quote together for you, but I need water results. I need to see what's in your water so that I can design something, and then I can give you a price. And I think in the in the guts to say to actually put yourself, put a line in the sand and say, we've done enough work in this area to know that you are likely to get iron in that area, or you're likely to get salt. And so you're going to be in this ballpark. And to sort of package that and do that, I think has been very helpful in that qualification process. But it takes a bit of balls to be able to do that. It takes, having to put your line down on the sand and say, I think this is what it's going to be. Because so many people will be scared to say it to a higher number at that stage because, oh, what happens if there's not iron? And I could actually get them a pH system only, and that would be so much cheaper. And then we'd actually convert them. But now I'm giving them an iron number and I'm not. So having the guts to be able to do that is something that's important. And I think knowing that you're not going to sell every single job that comes on your plate, but that's going to get you to 80% of them in a much quicker manner. And I think was an important process. So we've actually, how do I get my sales guys to be able to do that? Well, I've built out on Google My Maps, like I've plotted the different areas of where I, from experience and from the engineering background, like know roughly what different quality waters you're going to get in it. So now all my sales guy does is he types in, okay, this home address, X, and he sees, oh, it's in a yellow area. That means there's going to be iron there. And he has a pricing card to give a ballpark of what iron systems are going to be costing. Um, and that's really sped up that qualification process as well for them to get to a lot more clarity a lot quicker.
But I think besides the qualification process, again, I'm thinking about myself going through this as a customer experience, and it's everything that signals is deep expertise, and even the framing of that, there's just so much honesty in this. It's like, listen, you're likely to don't know until test, but here's a ballpark. Like, is this what you're thinking of? It's like, I'm actually just tire kicking right now, and I thought borehole would be a good idea, but never mind. I might get back to you. Never. um. And I guess there's a point of seriousness, but either way, there's still the, like, what that does for me, even if I'm a non-customer, going through that is like, I'm never going to forget that, right? Because like you don't have an experience like that with other businesses. You don't have like the, hey, it's by the way, it's likely to be this cool. Like we know this, we've done this before, and also given, and even that point of, I can tell you're not a customer, but I'm still giving you a customer service. Yeah, I'm just really like, I'm just imagining what it's like to like, I'm almost gonna actually phone your business and just like attempt to be a non-customer just to see what it's like because I feel like I'm gonna have a good time. I'm kidding. I'm not gonna waste your business's time like that. But the way that you're describing it is, it's like it's. I can't imagine having a bad experience, which is really cool.
Look, I think that's the goal. I don't think it always materializes like that. I think that, I can say the concept and what we're
Humans.
trying to achieve. And yeah, humans, things happen, like, so right now our sales consultants moved more into sort of a slightly different path where he's actually building it easy. They've gone into like a full commission structure. And so I'm hiring right now for a new sales specialist. So right now your calls come through and they go to like finance and HR who needs to redirect you if they can, if the sales consultant's around. And so, yes, ideal world, and that's what happens most of the time, ideally, but not all the time.
Well, that's the growth pains, the scaling pains, right? And that's less of a human thing. That's actually more of a systems problem.
Yeah, exactly. One other thing now that you reminded me, something else that we did from a sales perspective quite early on, when Reg joined, was we we tried to help him with this filtering idea. We actually built out the different types of clients that we get. This is not uncommon, and I think a lot of businesses do this. We call them different animal names, so you get like a helpless bunny, right? Who's somebody that in the right area, like in the Constantia Bishop's Court area, they've got a decent amount of money, and yes, our systems are on a residential level, they are high end. We're aiming at the higher end of that side of things. So they include like remote monitoring and sort of all the bells and whistles from a water treatment perspective. It's going to be the best quality system that you're going to get from a residential perspective, but it's also going to cost. And that's not the same that we do from a commercial perspective. And from a commercial perspective, it's really about functionality. And so we've got two very different clients there. But anyway, I digress a little bit. But from our residential side, a helpless bunny is somebody that doesn't know anything about water, and you've got to help get them across the line, and they are in the right area. And then we got one down from that, which is a wise owl. Now it's somebody that maybe is in the right area and is going to be a potential client, but they are starting to ask questions around pH and how do we do things, and that they're pretty clued up already, and they're probably shopping around as well. And so the way that you address that client is going to be slightly different. Then you get things like the thirsty ostrich, who's going to be in an area that either has salts or iron in the water. The system's going to be big. It's going to be the size of an ostrich. It's going to be like a big size system. But flip, they're going to use a lot of water, and it's going to be expensive. You're going to have to struggle to get them across the line. That's more like a bit of a yellow client versus the first two that are going to be green. Those are going to be much easier sales. Or an elusive lizard who is also in that irony type of area that's going to need a big system, but they're never going to buy from you. Or you got like a pinching crab who is trying to just feed information off of you. And yeah, so a couple of different animal names around that, which I think, it would help because I'd get an inquiry coming in from the website Warm Leads. I send it to Reg. I say, here's a helpless bunny. And you know exactly that he needs to call that person ASAP. He needs to give them all the attention they will buy. And it's just about giving them a good service. And so yeah, that was super helpful, I think, in terms of that journey as well.
Yeah, that is. Dude, I'm loving this. I love the way that you've explained just how you're running your business. It's like really, really inspiring, but also really thought provoking. Talking about the complexity of managing those two different markets, right? So obviously, going to the homeowners versus the commercial side. You've got one sales consultant. There's you. Very different solutions, very different needs that are being met. Just the operations of that, I can imagine, on a commercial side is far more complex. Lots more moving pieces, literally. Yeah, how do you handle that separation to make sure that you still maintaining a great customer experience on both sides?
Yeah, it's interesting. It's I think as the business has grown, we started very much focused in on the residential side of things, and so we probably were doing from a volume perspective like 90% residential work and 10% commercial work. And I think that the residential space it's sort of about marketing positioning as well. So the residential space, you get a lot of plumbers doing sort of really average work, and fly by nights and all that sort of stuff that happens. And we positioned ourselves, and there's lots of them. And then we positioned ourselves above that, where we're not a plumbing company, we're an engineering company. And we come at this from an engineering perspective, and we give you high quality. And there's very few people playing in that space. Whereas like there's a high quality solution for residential. There's a couple, but there's very few. Then you take it into the commercial space, and the proficiency of the companies changes substantially. So the people that we're competing with is also very different. Not only the clients, but the actual competitors are different as well. And they now are also engineering companies, and they're very proficient what that they're doing. They've been around for a lot longer than us. They've got more engineers than us, and they got more time to develop systems and put it into that. So how do you compete with those guys? And I think that there's definitely a cap in terms of where we've decided to play. Like, we've been very clear that 200,000 liters above is not really the game that we're playing in, because there are really good companies in that space, and we just don't have the finances and the backing and all that sort of stuff to try and start competing with those guys. We'd probably come in at a much better price than them, but you know what? I don't think that's where we want to be focusing. And there's a nice niche between to 10 cubes a day and 200 cubes a day. Cubes is like kiloliters, and it's difficult to conceptualize, but one of those big Jojo tanks you look at is like a 10 kiloliter Jojo tank. So between one of those and 20 of those a day in terms of water consumption, and that's a nice space for us to be playing. Yeah, it's a lot of water still. And
That's still like a mall,
and
eh?
yeah, for sure. So I mean, like a car wash or a service station may only use like 20 kiloliters a day. So only two tanks. We do work with a really big cool drink manufacturer in Stellenbosch, which is where I was today, going and commissioning an upgrade there. And they're using 200 and they're sort of on the high end, so 250,000 liters a day, 250 kiloliters a day, and that's producing cool drinks. So it has to be super high quality and a really nice client. And so it's sort of a bit about marketing positioning and that side of things. And then the way that we sell to those different customers is completely different. In the residential space, it's all about high quality, right? And it's about the water not cutting out. So how do you avoid the day zero situation? And how do I know that I can trust the water that's coming into my house, that I'm drinking, that my kids are using, that my wife is showering in, etc.? And we get a lot of people that have moved down from Joburg, a lot of people that are moving from overseas, buying houses in South Africa. Ooh, I don't know what I can trust, what I can't trust, and making sure that the things that are most important, they're covering those. And versus the commercial space, which is all about money. It's all about making savings on your water. And the savings are so real in that commercial space. And if you think about the cost of water, it when you're only using a kiloliter a day, and it's 40 rand a kiloliter in a residential house, there's not much savings to be made. But when you're using 200 kiloliters a day, and you're paying municipality 40 rand a kiloliter, and our systems are producing that from you from an operating perspective of like 10 to 15 rand a kiloliter, there's a lot of money that you can be saving over the period of a month. Um, and and the other nice thing about these, I think a lot of people compare the water systems that we do to solar, because it's essentially the same thing. It's getting off the grid from a water perspective, not from an electricity perspective. And while the solar systems are, the payback that you're going to get on a residential house, I think are quite similar to the payback that you're going to get on a commercial building, because each panel is spec'd at 300 watts, and you've got to have the same number of batteries. It's just more of the same. It's not super scalable. So you're going to get an 8-year payback, whether you're looking at a residential house or whether you're looking at a commercial building. Like, it's a pretty straight and flat model. It's not super scalable. The water systems, we're using very similar components from a control perspective, a dosing perspective, a pump perspective, if it's in a house versus if it's in a building, a commercial building. And so it's very, very scalable. Your capital costs up front are, just because you're doing double the volume or 3 times the volume, the costs aren't double or 3 times. And so in those commercial systems, we sometimes finding payback periods of like 2 years or 3 years, which is incredible for anybody to invest in from that perspective. And hey, what's more than just the financial savings, now you're getting better water quality and you've got a backup supply because you can use municipal as your backup. And now you can use the treated water as your
Yeah,
primary. So
sorry, just on that. I mean, we've taken this long for me to actually ask you about your business model, right? And is it quite similar to like the power purchase agreements model that solar has?
So it's not, and that is a huge opportunity for us. There's massive opportunity. So pretty much,
So it's just pure installation, and is there maintenance? Like because the fact that you're visiting your client in Stellenbosch today, and like you've installed the system, like besides going and maintaining it, and what does that maintenance look like? What does that kind of contracting look like, etc.?
correct, yeah. So there is a maintenance side of it, and for sure, and that's never been. It's probably only been about 20% of our revenue in the past, but it's only because we're growing as quickly as we are that it is. I think it's the annuity income is going to catch up at some stage. I haven't sort of forecast where that's going to be. In my mind, I'd love for our annuity income to be like 45% of our business, and I think that's really sustainable, not only from an exit perspective, to investors and that sort of things, but also just to fluctuating market conditions and COVID or whatever, is the next pandemic that comes around or whatever it may be. I think it's a really nice, secure place to be. So yes, I see our lifetime value of our clients is probably half on the installation and half on the servicing over the next 10 years. And so there is that nice aspect. But majority of our systems, I'd say, I don't even have to say majority, 100% of our systems to date have pretty much been a capital purchase. You've got money, you put it down, put a deposit in, we go and procure stock, we build the system, we install it, and you pay the rest on when you complete. And the problem is, the size, even for a residential system, not many people have 100,000 Rand lying around to just spend on a water treatment system. And so opening up financial models or financial opportunities, and even things like pay per kiloliter is definitely the next step of where I'm wanting to grow from a sales perspective. Right now, we don't necessarily need to, but I know that space is also going to be capitalized on quite quickly. So, I can't wait too long.
Yeah, because I'm also just thinking about the adoption curve. I mean, you've kind of got the innovators, you've got the early adopters that can afford this, but now like going early majority, late majority, actually getting like the solid chunk of the market. Like there's the majority of the market is just not able to do this just quite simply from a cash perspective, right? It's like there's the need, there's the want to, etc. And it's like that's gonna and the interesting thing is, I imagine when you do that, not only are you going to need the right financing partner for your clients, you're going to need the right financing partner for yourself, and that's going to be like a hugely different like stage in the business.
Yeah, that's right. And that's sort of what's probably been holding us back so far. So, I mean, to date, we haven't had any investment in the business from external parties or anything like that. And, it's been completely, I'd say, bootstrap funded. And I've got a small amount of my own money that I've invested in the business, but nothing major. And I've loved it that way. And that's been very intentional as well. I specifically in the beginning, I said, I want to be my own boss. I want to be able to choose what's the right path, where I want to work from today, what I want to engage with, what I want to focus on, where I think the next right way for the business is to go. And look, I have a lot of people that give input in that. So I have a leadership team that really helps to drive that, and I've got a couple of people that are asked from a mini advisory perspective. So it's not, I'm not saying by any means it's all me. I think there's a lot of really, really good ideas that come out of those people, and that's what guides us. But that's what I want. So I'm very nervous about the fact of, well, how do you do this? How do you finance something like that? How do you partner with it? And like, we can't finance it internally. So do we need, so I'm fleshing out all those things. I've come up with a couple of good partners already, two specifically one of them can look at it more from a financing perspective, and one can so like a rent to own setup, and then the other one from a kiloliter purchasing agreement sort of thing. But it's also a very new space. So, the regulatory environment needs to be explored in more depth from my perspective, from those sorts of things too. But just to touch on another thing that you may find interesting is just some of my thoughts, especially in the earlier stages, but even today, like on investment versus bootstrapping and sort of doing it by yourself. And I think there's from my side, there's a huge amount of jealousy of like friends that I see who've had investments in their businesses, and they're pulling a nice salary, and they've grown their staff like triple in 1 year and all those sorts of things. And I'm like, oh, like it would be so nice, but I've got to keep on reminding myself that that's not what I'm wanting. That's I don't want to have to then go and report to a board and be held accountable for whatever decisions or direction they want me to go in. Like I want to be in control of that destiny. And I know very clearly where our goals are, and that may be very different from there. Otherwise, I may as well just go work in another business. I may as well just go work in a corporate, and pull that nice cushy salary. So I get very jealous in those situations, but I've got to keep on reminding myself of like what the true purpose is here.
I'm very curious about where you're thinking about this and thinking about scale, but also to your point around taking investments. And it's also it's very tempting. There's the sustainable business. There's also the kind of control. There's the freedom element. But I think a huge part about this is that we haven't shared with the audience yet is like what success looks like for you, like what that endpoint is. And it's not a yacht in Mallorca. And I'm just like, I just want to share that because that also is an important principle of like, I don't think a lot of people think about what and defining success and visualizing and picturing like what is actually success look like for me, because then that often dictates our own biases as an entrepreneur about how we want to grow our business. Because if it's just about material success and status, and doing that, then the route of how quickly can I get financing, how quickly can I make sure that I get the right investor so I can scale this thing up through the roof, it's like it becomes a bit of a no-brainer. But for you, you're not playing that game. Like you've got a different personal goal in mind. So yeah, unpack that for me, but also unpack how that's affected your philosophy of how you're building your business.
Yeah, it's so true. I think it is really the core of your philosophy of building a business. I had somebody who came to me the other day, and I just spent an hour with them. They wanted to talk to me about business strategy and what their next steps were, and we just really went back down to the basics, to saying I can't actually. I'm not the one to advise you on strategy. First, you need to figure out what you want in terms of what's good for you and your personal life. Like, do you want this business? Do you want personally to be managing a team of 100 people in 20 years time? Or do you want to just be running a marketing business by yourself and earning a decent amount of money so that you can travel? Like those are very different avenues that you're going to have to go down. And that's going to shape the, how your business is built and where you're wanting to go with it and exactly what you're wanting to do. And so yeah, I think all of these things have been very true. So pretty much from that, like February 2000 and 18, like I said, that's when I realized, okay, it's now going to be a business. It's not just going to be me. And right then I need to be able to decentralize a lot of the decision making and empower other people to do things. Why do I need to do that? Well, I need to do that because I want control over my own time. And what's my end goal? I've always, always, always had a passion in my heart from, school days. I mean, I spent, as soon as I finished school, I went and spent 6 months going and working in the bush because I absolutely love the bush and I absolutely love animals. And that's my thing. That's what, gets me going. However, I very quickly realized after 6 months of working in the bush that I'm not going to get to owning a game farm, which is sort of the pipeline dream pipe dream. I'm not going to be able to get to earning a game farm by working in the bush. Like you don't earn that as a game manager's salary. So it's going to have to come from somewhere. And so meshing all the pieces together, I know I want to be my own boss. I know that sort of the life that of entrepreneurship that my parents gave me, and I know the end goal of where I want to get to. Well, that's now helping me shape the business idea behind where I'm wanting to get to, because I know that I'm going to have to earn a certain amount of money to be able to buy that game farm. Um, and I know how I want to earn that money. Well, I want to earn it by running my own business and being in control of my time while I'm doing that as well. And so that's very clearly shaped where I want to get to. And I sort of know a number that I actually need to be able to get there. So right now, this probably is something that anybody would look at and say is a terrible idea. But the goal of the business is not to make a profit. The goal of the business right now is to grow, purely from a revenue perspective. And of course we need to be focused on profit, and there is an aspect of that as well.
Well, there's a difference between profit and profitability.
Yeah, exactly. So the goal of the business is to grow, because I know that, earning 10% on a 1 million rand company, or say 20% on a 1 million rand company, is going to be a lot less than earning 5% on a 20 million rand company. Like, you're earning less percentage profits at the end of the day, but the company is just bigger. So the bigger that we get to the company, we're going to be able to earn much more, or I'm going to be able to get much more from a profitability perspective and from a sale perspective than I would be without focusing on that growth. So it's again about the long-term goal of saying, I'm going to sacrifice profit now. I'm going to sacrifice that because I'm investing in the business, and I'm investing. I had Absa around the other day. They're saying, where's the investment in the business? Like, what assets have you bought? I said, I'm investing in people. I'm getting people on board, so it's not an asset, but I'm getting people on board in the right places, training them up, getting the systems and processes in place. And that costs money to get that in place ahead of time so that we're preempting the growth. Because you got to grow the people now to be able to grow into that space. And so if you look at like our sort of our revenue growth and our sort of overheads growth, it's sort of always been that overhead tracks a little bit ahead of, okay, this cost of goods sold, but conceptually. And there's the overhead grows, in sort of these steps, these steps. As you hire a bunch of new people, sort of it gets to the next level, and then we sort of wait for revenue to catch up to that step. And then once revenue catches up to that step, well, we then do another step change in terms of people growth. And once revenue catches up, then we do the next step change. So there's your overheads is sort of growing in that step fashion, and ideally your revenues in a straight line or a curve of some sorts. But it always is lagging currently, and the way that I've run the business is slightly behind the growth rate of the overheads and that side of things. So yeah, that's my concept in terms of where I'm wanting to get to, and I think that feeds off a lot of how we're getting there. What I've realized more recently in the last 2 years is that, sure, and I mentioned this right in the beginning, is it's actually not always about that end goal, and it's a lot about the journey of how we're getting there. And I think just through doing some soul searching and I've just felt like it really on my heart that it's, number one, this business is not me. Like, there's been a lot of doors that have opened and a lot of opportunities that I've had throughout my life that have been able to get me to this position. And there's no reason that's definitely not on me. There's a bigger purpose for this business and for, my influence that I can have on other people's lives in that. And I think that something that's been so important for me recently is that this business needs to be a blessing to others. Where does that blessing start? That blessing starts with our employees. Number one, people always say customer first. Like, who's the most important person in the business? It's the customer. No, it's your employees. You can get another customer. You can't get more. It's a lot more difficult to get new employees. And so it really has to start there. And what I've been doing from a business perspective is trying to build a culture where the employees feel really appreciated. But not just that, like, a lot of these guys come, if you're a technician and you're coming from a very different background where you haven't been exposed to structure in your life or how things work or being paid at the right time every month. It's not something that exists, or budgeting on your personal side. And that's so those soft skills, those life skills are things that I'm really trying to build the company up to be an example to the people that are working within there, to be sometimes the fathers that those guys didn't have, and not myself, but the company to be a father and to be that nurturing help and that support system that they didn't have. And so I think that's really been sort of a calling on my heart to say that this is not about me, this is not built for me. And actually, to be honest, this could crash and implode tomorrow, but I'm confident that it's not, because I know that God's actually got a greater plan for this business and for the people that are involved in this business. It's not about me. And so that's again, it's really rewarding, because when we get into those tough times and cash flow is difficult, it's so freeing, and it sounds so silly, but it's so freeing to know that it's actually, I don't have to worry. Like, it's not, I know that things are going to work out, and if they don't, there's a bigger purpose for it as well. It's not just me and my little bubble and in my world that I've got to deal with. There's something bigger at play here.
Oh, yeah, I also love the transcendent element of it. Is uh, there's these moments that I have, like I said, I'm pretty burnt out at the moment, when I just feel tired and exhausted, and it was like, kind of sucks being an atheist, because it's like I don't have that, and it's like I kind of have this moment. So it's like I'm actually starting to feel jealous of people that have faith, because my belief system unfortunately doesn't provide me with that. But that's a personal journey for me to go on.
Well, I mean, on that, like, I don't know how I wouldn't be able to live. I wouldn't be able to do what I wouldn't be able to be where I am without that support. Like, what is the bottom? There is no bottom. So the bottom just drops out below you if there isn't that support. So yeah, I feel for you in the place that you're in, and many other people around the world. Like what we've been able to do at Grand Step would not exist without that, hands down.
Yeah, it's definitely tested my resilience. I must say that. Steve, what does the next 12 to 18 months look like for you? Actually, no, let me make it more specific. What does the running up to the end of 2025 look like? And then what does 2026 look like for you in the business?
Hmm. So I always had uh, uh let me I mean, maybe just feeding onto sort of my long term vision, and where we want to get to, and then I can bring that back down to 1 year. And I think often from a strategic perspective, I always look at like 10 year, 3 year, and then down to the 1 year. So I think it's quite nice to paint that picture. And probably about 2, 3 years ago, I said there was a 10 year plan, and that was the number of X for my game farm, and the idea was always to build a business to scale that I could get it to a sellable place. But like, again, that's a concept that I was struggling with, because we all know that most times when a medium-sized company gets to that sort of size, whoever's buying it's not just going to let the founder go and like go run his game farm. Like, that doesn't happen. The founder is often integral to the business, but they also just need somebody to hold their hand for like an extended period of time to like transition that over. And so I've sort of started to struggle with the idea of, is exiting really the right idea? I don't know. And I had a chat to a guy probably about a year and a bit ago. And he has started and runs an amazing company. They are the distributors for Jack Daniels and a couple of other liquors throughout South Africa and Africa. And he said, I'm on the business of selling companies. I'm the business of buying companies. Like, what am I going to do? Yes, sure, you're going to sell for the amount that you're going to sell, but just built into me as a person, and I'm speaking from his perspective, built into me as a person is like, I will need to be involved in something else after that. And that money is going to run out. The money that you sort of been bought off by. But like, he's got himself into a position where he's earning a decent amount of money, and he's working very, very low hours. He's still written it into his contract where he's, with his new MD, that he still draws a very big salary from that. And that's more than sufficient to, you know, with his savings over the 20 years that the business has been running, you know, invest in whatever he wants, and buy whatever game farm he wants. He's done incredibly well for himself. And that's is quite a different path. And it started to sort of play with my mind to say, maybe that is the better way to do it. Regardless, it doesn't actually matter about me right now, because whichever path I choose, my next step is exactly the same. My next step is I still need to make sure that that business can operate without me. I still know that the next person, I need to sort out my sales function and get my new sales specialist. And I need to get another junior engineer, and I need to get another field manager, so that that business can run without me having to be so integrally involved. And that's the same story if I'm going to sell it, or it's the same story if I'm going to remove myself slowly from it, and be able to sort of pull a decent salary or a decent profit from that business at some stage. So that sort of informs the greater idea, sort of informs the next steps of where we wanted to get to. And so while it was a 10 year idea to sort of sell at that stage, it's now sort of morphing into a position of, well, maybe it's not a 10 year plan, maybe it's much longer. And maybe there's a lot of adjacent companies and stuff that can be started through this. So in the last 2 years, we've started a company called Commercial Pool Engineering, and that's been an amazing success story in terms of it's exactly the same components. It's pumps and dosing pumps and chemical control and that sort of stuff. Still pipes, still treating water, but it's a very, very different application. So commercial pool engineering does the big pump rooms for school pools, university pools, gym pools, and that side of things. And we've got this year, we've done 4 amazing projects. We've done a new center, aquatic center for American International School in Takai. We've done Bishop's High School. We're in the process of redoing their entire water polo pool. And we've done 2 projects for Herschel Girls School as well. And we've actually done a project for Weinberg Girls High School too. So, I mean, that's been a huge success story, which is just it's a completely different client and application, but it's exactly the same product. And actually, all of my, I don't have any staff employed by CPE because I just sort of shared services, contracts them through from ground to tap. And I think there's many other, which I'll keep closer to my chest, ideas that that are similar to that can be spin-offs of ground to tap. And I think it's an amazing way to be able. I think people disregard what being around in a business, what it counts just being around and doing the hard slog for many years does. Like I've compared, I've said that I've looked at other people that have had investment and been jealous of them. But I've also looked at other people that are running other businesses, whether it be a landscaping business or a irrigation business or a water treatment business or selling socks. And I've said, how have they got that big? And you forget what 20 years of hard work does and that exponential effect that has. And I can start to see that now where we're starting to get referrals, we're starting to get work that we worked on. We started working on some of these projects like 3 years ago, and the clients coming back to us and we're starting to sell those projects now. And so that snowball effect of just being in business and being in those networks and getting your name out there and being that name that people know is super important. And I think that in the short-term focus, we forget that. And it's been inspirational to be able to start to see that come into fruition, which is really nice.
I love the fact that you've had that transformation in thinking, because I've always been, I mean, not necessarily quite confused, but it's I've never fully grasped people that have the predominant goal to build to exit, like exit from the beginning. And the reason why is because, like, throughout my life, I've had the privilege of brushing shoulders with some extremely successful people. But these people all built their businesses from scratch. They always got financing, but they never had a proper board. They never had bosses, as you put it, even like in investors. They never had an agenda except their own. And so for them, the more that they scaled, the more fun they had, right? The more freedom that they had, and the view was, it's like, yes, they were always ended up being CEOs of their business. But the way that I viewed it is that their business is at a point where they've got the freedom to do whatever the hell they want, right? They could be non-executive chairman and still pull an epic salary. They could have given themselves a job as a head of sales. Like you can do whatever you want at that point. But also that's outside of the freedom side. They've got so much contextual knowledge on their industry, on their markets, on their problem, on their supply chain, on their value chain. And so with that is like, there's a deep network, there's a deep knowledge. So to the point where not only do you have the network, but you've also got the resources where it's like, it's never been easier to solve problems for them, and also in the process of monetizing them. So I just see people when they get there, where a lot of people are like, okay, I must exit. And it was like, if you left that for like 5 more years, right, and just kind of kept going, because you're going to keep scaling, that level of fun and freedom and enjoyment, and also financial freedom, is and again, I can't speak to this from experience, but it's become ingrained in my philosophy, right? And just in terms of what I view entrepreneurial success to be like, because you like, I also genuinely believe you can have your cake and eat it too, right? You can still have your business and still have like unadulterated freedom at the same time, right? It is still very possible, because I've seen it. I don't know how to get there, right? I know how to help people form strategies to help with certain steps along the journey. I don't know how to get there, but it's just because I've had that belief system. It's really interesting to hear you share how you are starting to convert that yourself as well.
Yeah, yeah, so true. And and it's yeah, it's just difficult to. I think one thing that you said earlier, which was I'm just trying to think now exactly what it was, but it was around the fact that um they can do whatever they want and they can make themselves in whatever position. And why would they wait? If you just waited 5 more years, you could have that sort of freedom from that snowboarding mothball effect. I think that I can also sympathize and see where people are at, where enough's just enough too, because the reality is that this entrepreneurship journey is super tough. And we often in podcasts like this talk about all the good times, but and people will say, upfront, it's the most difficult thing I've ever done. But it's actually difficult to really conceptualize that unless you're in it. Um, and I think even with Grant Tap, I mean, there is a very big risk of it becoming too much before I get to that stage. Like there is so many balls in the air that we're juggling. Sometimes I wish that I was selling sunglasses, because it's a it's an item that you give to somebody, and the only time it breaks is when they sit in the car and they come back to you and they buy a new pair. Um, but you know, from when we started installing that first water system at my parents' house to the complexity that's involved in an engineering company now, and the number of, I mean, cables that go into a system and control features and sensors and all those sort of things, and the number of them that can number one fail, but also the number of touch points that different people have to be involved to get that project across the line, from sales to proposal engineer to detailed design to project management to procurement of that stock, then getting the technician to install it correctly according to the installation, and double checking and quality checking. It's like it's mind blowing. It's so complex, and 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 then couple on that to the fact that number one, people are using this water, like they it's touching their bodies, it's going, they're drinking it, like there's a high risk. So you can't get that wrong anywhere along that line. And then on top of that fact is that it's, again, we're not dealing with solar where there's one sun and it gives a specific type of sunlight. We're dealing with borehole water that can change at any time, and your system's got to be able to be flexible enough to say, oh, we're picking up some iron now, like how do we make sure that we're dealing with that? And anything can fail at any time, and you also need power to run into the system. And so there's just like an epiphany of a number of different deviations and things that can happen, and that complexity can get incredibly overwhelming. It's not only the complex, the difficulty of worrying about cash flow at the end of the month. It now comes with a whole different side of complexity, and effort as well. So I can definitely sympathize with that guy not lasting an extra 5 years. And just the, I mean, you're saying you burnt out, like the just being tired after a while.
And so to be like, a couple things going through my head is even what you mentioned earlier. Like someone was like, oh, I want some help with my strategy. It's like, first question, what do you actually want? Like what kind of business do you actually want to run? Because like that's also why there's no perfect answer to this topic, because it's also an extremely personal journey. Like you're pouring your identity into this, you're pouring your energy, your attention. Like this is like that's what entrepreneurship is. And so if you're not kind of clear what it is that you want to be building for, your subconscious. But it reminds me of a quote. Is that actually I want to Google it. Like it was a subconscious, something to do with subconscious and fate. I think it's Carl Jung. Is this ringing any bells to you by any chance?
No, it's not.
It's so good. Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life, and you will call it fate.
Mm.
It just made me think of that. But on that being the personal journey, it also reminds me of why Nick, who's my other business partner and whose methodology we use, why he built this in the first place. It's like he believes there's nothing more powerful than the intuition of an entrepreneur. But like, no matter how good you are at handling complexity, your business is going to keep complexifying. It's going to get more and more complex as you're going, and that can be overwhelming at times. And this whole point was just like, how can you constantly elevate someone's strategic IQ so that their intuition can handle and keep up with or stay ahead of that complexity? And that's his mission. That's one thing that I definitely share and overlap with. Because I still have, that's why I have that belief. It's like, what's that ceiling effect? What's that point where it's like, I'm overwhelmed and I'm tired? And it's like, yeah, maybe it's because you've been running this on intuition the whole time, right? There are ways to like elevate that. And I fundamentally believe in that, but I also, because this is a very complex but intangible problem. It's not the full solution either. But I do hear you.
Yeah, I think give yourself more credit than that. I don't think you've just been running on intuition. I think there's a lot of thought in terms of what you've been doing as well. So
Oh yeah. So 100%. It's like not just me. It's and same thing to also entrepreneurs. I'm not just saying it's all just pure intuition, but yeah. Uh, yeah, after a while, I'm sharing his philosophy and why the frameworks and the methodology come in. You made me trip over my words there. Actually, no, I tripped over my own words because of myself. Ah. Um, Steve, uh, what is the one question that I haven't asked you that I should have asked you that you'd like to answer now?
one thing that has been, I think, again, like through my learning and something that's so important about business and something that I by no means have got right. And there's a huge amount of work that we still need to do in it, but I'm very conscious about it. And the way that we've done it is the people aspect. And it's something, again, coming back to Bain days, I'm so grateful for. Um it's it's Bain is a company that isn't selling a product as much as they are selling their people. They sort of pride themselves in having, highly intelligent individuals that are able to come in and solve complex business problems. The reason you don't have them in your current corporation is because they come at too high a price point often. And so they just come in for short periods of time and come and crash something out. But to attract that person, and they don't just pay a high salary. They really treat their people with such respect, and so many of the processes and things that they've put in place at Bain is all around your growth as a person and the people side of it as well. So everything from like um, professional development conversations and the way that they manage PD, and to empowering their team, have been things that I've picked up and I've wanted to incorporate in my business. So from day one, like I set up that we have formal PD discussions right in the beginning. So employee number one, we would have PD discussions. We would have um, quarterly events that we would have, the two of us would go to, and we'd go and have a quarterly team building event, just two of us, right? And we would have formal sit downs, just two of us, and we would have a check-in every 2 months, and we would talk about a list of things, and put away from the work perspective, how are you doing, what's what's on your mind. And I think it's really amazing to see that the perseverance that I've had with those things are now starting to really take effect. Now, in a team of 25, when you've got a team lead sitting down with a senior technician and having a PD chat and talking about how they can work together, that's been because of that initial culture that was built around this is as an important part of business as getting your job right. Like, this is the essential part around making people feel heard, making people, helping people to grow. And it was quite disconcerting for me, because I've also had to learn that technicians and office staff react in a very, very different way. Bain was built around office staff, and something that's gone to university, and obviously thinks in a certain type of way, and wants to do things in a certain type of way, has various aspirations for that. Now I've got somebody that has sometimes a matric or a grade 10, and hasn't necessarily sometimes done well in those, and actually wants to work with their hands, doesn't want to work in front of a computer. Like, they've got very different aspirations to the office of. So and they've come from companies in construction where the way that their boss gets them to do work is by shouting at them. Like, that's how things happen in construction industry. Like, how do you now take that person with that experience out of that environment and try and get them to buy into this bigger picture of, well, this is a supportive structure. This is a team that we're working in, and this is the way that we do things. And, the only time they were ever called into the director's office was when they were in trouble. And now I'm bringing them in and I'm saying, I just want to have a chat and find out how you're doing. And the nerves
What's the
that, like,
catch?
yeah, exactly. Like, what is this? Like, I'm very confused. And so I think it's something that's slowly starting to rub off, but it's definitely not something that we've got across the line. And it's so difficult in an entrepreneurial company as well, to, while we've worked incredibly intentionally and hard at it, I still don't think that we're good at it. There is a degree of fight or flight that happens in a company our size, just because we're resource constrained, and that's always going to happen in an entrepreneurial company. Like, there's important things that need to get across the line. Yeah, if somebody's asking me a question, my immediate response is, and we have very high expectations as well as myself in the company, and we need to have those high expectations because we're delivering a high quality product. We can't afford any slip ups along the way, and so there is sort of sometimes this bit of fight or flight mentality around things that I haven't figured out how to solve. Despite the underlying culture that we're trying to create, how do you get people to really act in a way that frees them up to make a mistake, but like, let's then proactively go and sort it out. I'm not going to be angry if you made a mistake, but I want you to be able to put the checks and balances in place to catch that mistake early. And don't brush it under the carpet. And then let's work together and try and make a solution here. Like, how do you get that person to take that ownership of that situation and not feel like, especially coming from the background that they may have come from, that their boss is going to shout at them and kick them out the door. And so it's very difficult to change the culture of, in many ways, a nation. I really do feel like that is, again, part of that being a blessing as a company is we need to be a shining star in terms of a way of doing things differently with our people. Um, and it's difficult. I don't think we're there yet by any means, but it's something that I'm very actively trying to work on and get right in the long run.
How are you doing it, and what are some of the like signs that you can see this is working? Because like the way that you're even describing this, I'm imagining anyone who's been very relationally traumatized coming into this, it's very difficult for them to open up because there's all of this like, I'm protecting myself, I just kind of do this head down, I don't trust, don't open up, not allowed to have an opinion, because every time I ever have, I've been kind of shot down and hit down. And I'm just equating this to trauma, but in many ways it is relational trauma. You come into this job and like someone's shouting at you the whole time. It's like, imagine you came home and someone just shouted at you the whole time. Like we talk about like abusive households, but like I don't think abusive workplaces gets spoken about enough. Yeah. So like, how are you actually doing that, and what are you seeing is working, and also what's not working?
Yeah. And I mean, maybe ask me in 5 years' time, because I don't have the answer yet. And I don't. I think that the problem is that it's not changed overnight. It's not in a day. It's not in 8 years that it's going to change. It's something. And remember, I mean, like, our company was 12 people 2 years ago, and we're 25 people now. So there's a lot of new people as well that still need to learn that culture and to learn that type of way that we're dealing with. And I mean, it's very rewarding to get some some of the people into our business that are more senior and have been working in other businesses, and they see that this is substantially different. They're like, this is something special from the way that we're trying to build that culture and what we're trying to do there. And and they're starting to buy into that and adopt that. And it's got to filter down to the team from that perspective. It's just going to have to be, I think, just repetition after repetition after repetition, and just people learning. I think you've mentioned the speed of trust, that book, after a while, but people getting to know your intent and knowing that your intent is true, and knowing that it's not me that I'm actually doing this for. I'm doing this for us, right? And that's really what a leader is. It's not about getting people to do what you want. It's about helping them understand what they want is aligned to the company, values, and where we're trying to go. And they're never going to do what you want. They're going to do what they want. So how do you, as a leader, how you get them to want the same things that you want? And 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 so it's, things like, I've been very clear from day one, you know, to employees. I've had 6 monthly strategy sessions with my entire team where I've been very clear, like, this is where we're going. This is what the plan is. This is how we've done from a revenue perspective. And these are what our goals are in the next 6 months or 3 months or year. And we continue to do those. And I've actually realized that I need to remind our team of our goals every quarter, because you get um, that that sort of workplace amnesia where you just forget what your goals are. And I know what they are because they're on my to-do list every single day, but the technician that's installing a system doesn't remember what they are, and that you need to remind them. So I think it's a lot about repetition. It's a lot about knowing that that's the intent. My one goal as an MD is, or founder or director, is that every single person that comes in and goes out of the business, I know that I want them to be a better person when they go out than when they came in. I'm under no false pretenses that people are going to be around forever. People are going to come and they're going to go, and that's absolutely fine. But my goal is that I need them to have grown in that experience. And so if anybody in the business, doesn't matter how busy I am, asks me, can I have 5 minutes? I know that, from an intent perspective, I need to give them that 5 minutes. I want to give them that 5 minutes. I've never ever said no to anybody. And often that 5 minutes turns into 45 minutes, and that's fine. I'm going to leave that client waiting because I'm dealing with my employees, who are the most important people in the business. And so I'm hoping that it's going to rub off. I don't have the solution. It's a very complex situation because I think it's had better effect on the office staff than it has on the technician staff. There's definitely some people we need to get across the line. But I think if I look back, I think we've made progress. And I think we're starting to get that sponsorship spine right of people that understand that this is not normal, that this is something different, and starting to rub that off on other people in the business as well.
Dude, awesome. Just all of us. Thank you for sharing your story on the Founder Files. Whichever path you choose to go down, and how you're going to be scaling your business, and all those other amazing ideas that you probably had, that you say you have close to your chest. I'm excited for round 2, and I'm very grateful that you shared your story with us. So thank you very much.
Awesome. Thanks, Cam. You've been an amazing host, as I mentioned. You've got a way of asking the right questions. So well done.
Thanks, Steve. Cheers.
Cheers, Cam.